We're all seeing this AI boom happen at like light speed, right? But what if this incredible digital future we're all racing towards just hits a wall? A very real, very physical wall. It turns out the whole grand vision of AI might be getting held back by a handful of tiny, ridiculously complex little parts. We're going to dig into the hidden cracks in AI's foundation, starting with just how big this challenge really is.
And this quote from AI Search News, it just nails the central problem here. This isn't just some temporary glitch, it's a fundamental conflict. You've got software and ideas moving at the speed of thought, but the actual hardware, well, that's stuck dealing with physics and manufacturing timelines and, of course, geopolitics. It's a classic story of ambition smashing up against reality. And we are talking about a massive industry. In 2024, global semiconductor sales are expected to hit over $627 billion. Now, you'd think a number that huge means everything's humming along just fine. But here's the paradox. That insane level of demand is the very thing creating a crisis, causing these bottlenecks that are sending shockwaves through the entire tech world.
There's actually a name for this whole mess: AI supply chain strain. The best way to think about it is like a bridge that was built for cars, but suddenly it's got to handle the weight of 1,000 freight trains. The demand isn't just stretching the supply chain, it's exposing these deep critical cracks that nobody was really paying attention to before.
So here's the really crucial part. The foundries, the places that actually make the silicon wafers, they're cranking them out faster than ever. But the finished AI servers, the engines of this whole revolution, are still facing huge delays. That tells you the problem isn't at the start of the production line. The real traffic jam is happening somewhere down the road, in those final, critical steps.
So where are these cracks? Well, we got to peel back the layers and look at two little components that are causing this global headache. One is called advanced packaging, and the other is a special type of memory called HBM. I know, they might sound a bit obscure, but right now they might just be the two most important technologies in the world of AI.
Okay, first up, advanced packaging. Think of it like this. A silicon wafer is just a sheet of raw potential. Advanced packaging, using technologies like TSMC's CoWoS, is the magic that takes a bunch of different little chips and perfectly assembles them into one single super powerful processor, like an NVIDIA GPU. Without this step, you don't have an AI chip. You just have a pile of really expensive sand.
And these numbers, well, they show you just how concentrated this whole thing is. By 2026, one company, NVIDIA, is expected to eat up nearly 60% of all this advanced packaging capacity. And most of that comes from one supplier, TSMC. This single technology has become a massive choke point, and one company basically controls the tap for the entire world.
Now for the second bottleneck, high bandwidth memory, or HBM. If an AI processor is the engine, HBM is basically its high-octane rocket fuel. It's this super specialized, stacked memory that just fire hoses data into the GPU. A processor without HBM is like a Formula One car with an empty tank. It's got all that power, but it's going absolutely nowhere.
And this is where the supply situation gets really crazy. SK Hynix, which is the main supplier of this stuff, isn't just backordered. They are completely, totally sold out. And I don't mean for a few months. We're talking all the way through the end of 2026. This one shortage is a huge reason why experts are saying this compute crisis could last for years.
So these high-tech bottlenecks are a massive deal. But a chain is only as strong as its weakest link. What happens when even the boring, everyday parts of the supply chain start to break? Well, the Nexperia crisis is a perfect and kind of scary case study of how a fight over simple card chips can spark a global firestorm. It's a preview of what could go wrong in AI.
Okay, so here's the setup. You've got Nexperia, a Dutch company, but it's owned by a Chinese firm called Wingtech. They don't make flashy AI chips. They make the boring but essential chips that your car needs to run. And here is their fatal flaw. The design and wafer making happens in Europe, but 80% of the final assembly happens in China. A supply chain literally split between two geopolitical rivals. You can probably see where this is going.
And just watch how fast this all fell apart. In September, the Dutch government steps in. Within weeks, boom, China retaliates with export controls. By late October, the entire German auto industry is sounding the alarm. And then, the company itself just severs its own supply chain. A complete and total breakdown in less than a month.
And this wasn't some abstract corporate drama playing out in a boardroom. This quote from Germany's Auto Association shows the immediate, real-world pain. We're talking about factories, the heart of the German economy, at risk of grinding to a halt. all because of a fight over these supposedly simple, everyday chips. It just proves every single link in the chain matters.
The Nesperi MS. It's really just a symptom of a much larger disease. It's one battle in a massive global geopolitical war for tech supremacy, fought between the US and China, where computer chips have become the new weapons. And the fight has escalated into this clear tit-for-tat. The US restricts chip exports to China. China essentially turns around and tells its companies not to buy from NVIDIA. The US launches the CHIPS Act to build factories at home. China hits back with investigations and inspections. Each side is using the supply chain as a weapon to try and cripple the other. But in the middle of this superpower slugfest, there is one single point of failure that is so big, it makes everything else look small. Over 90%. That is the share of the world's most advanced chips that are all made in one single place.
And yep, that place is Taiwan. For a company like NVIDIA, heck, for the entire global AI ecosystem, this incredible focus of manufacturing in one spot is the single greatest risk there is. It's not just a supply chain issue anymore, it's an existential threat. This is the kind of thing that keeps CEOs and world leaders staring at the ceiling at 3 in the morning.
So with all these vulnerabilities floating around, the bottlenecks, the trade wars, the huge geographic risk, how is the world responding? Well, the answer is a global race for something called sovereign AI. This really isn't about economics anymore. It's about national security and controlling your own destiny. Countries are finally waking up to the fact that their entire future competitiveness is tied to silicon that they don't control. So the new goal is to build up their own capabilities, to protect themselves from these global shocks. And this big ambition has a name: sovereign AI. It's the ultimate dream, right? A nation having everything it needs, the infrastructure, the data, the talent, to build and run its own AI systems from the ground up. It's basically about turning a huge strategic weakness into a source of national strength.
But you gotta ask the question, in an industry this tangled up, where a machine from the Netherlands is needed to make a chip in Taiwan that gets packaged with memory from South Korea, is total independence even realistic? Can anyone really go it alone?
And honestly, the expert consensus is probably not. The more pragmatic path, the more realistic one, is something called managed interdependence. The idea isn't to cut yourself off from the world. It's about being smarter about who you depend on. It means having more suppliers, building strong alliances with partners you trust, and creating resilience without chasing that impossible dream of doing it all yourself. And that leaves us with one final big thought to chew on. For decades, we all looked at the global supply chain as this brilliant feature, something to be optimized for maximum efficiency and minimum cost. But now that it's become a battleground for geopolitical power, do we need to start treating it as a bug, a fundamental flaw in the system that needs to be fixed? How we answer that question is going to define the next era of technology and maybe the balance of global power itself.